She laughed when I told her. Not the kind of laugh that invited me in, the kind that slammed the door. An app? Cora repeated, tilting her head. Ozzy, come on. You're sweet, but you're not that guy. That guy. The one who makes it. The one who gets the articles written about him. The one people admire from a distance and regret walking away from. She looked at my sketchpad like it was a toy. At my pitch deck like it was a joke. At me like I was some boy playing pretend in a man's world. We were at our usual brunch spot, someplace she loved because it had gold-rimmed plates and influencers in every booth. She sipped her overpriced latte, perfectly unaware that she was slicing me open with every word. You should be thinking about real jobs, she said, adjusting her sunglasses, not fairy tales in the App Store. That morning, I'd shown her the idea I'd spent 2 years building after work. An app for creators. A quiet space where writers, musicians, designers could flow without distractions. Not just a to-do list, a second brain. A companion for the chaos. I watched her scroll through my mock-ups with barely concealed boredom. This isn't how you impress investors, she added, stabbing her avocado toast. And it's definitely not how you keep a girlfriend, I said. Nothing. Not because I didn't have words, but because I knew they wouldn't land. She stood up and kissed the top of my head like a mother saying goodbye to a child with a silly hobby. I just want what's best for you, she said, and she left. Walked out of that cafe, her heels clicking like punctuation marks on the end of a sentence she thought she'd finished. What she didn't know was that she'd just given me my beginning. Because that day, as I sat in that chair, blinking through, the sting behind my eyes and the silence she left behind, I didn't feel broken. I felt focused. And 3 years later, when her company rolled out a mandatory app for all employees to help with creative workflow, she downloaded it without hesitation. She didn't know it yet, but the dream she'd mocked, it now ran her mornings. Quietly, relentlessly, beautifully. I've never been flashy. Not the guy with the loud voice in a crowded room or the one posting weekend yacht trips on social media. I was the quiet one. The he's nice guy. The one who brought a notebook to dinner because an idea struck and couldn't be trusted. To stay till morning. My name's Ozzy, and for most of my life I wasn't seen as a threat because I didn't threaten anyone. I didn't chase attention. I chased progress. Quietly, methodically. Like building code brick by brick until the thing you imagined became something someone else could touch. That was always my dream. To build something useful. Something real. Not for fame, not for money. Just to prove, to myself more than anyone, that what lived in my head was worth something. Then I met her. Cora. If I was silence, she was spark. She moved like she already knew the world was watching and didn't care what they thought, as long as they kept watching. Her laugh turned heads. Her presence filled rooms. She was unapologetically alive, and for a guy who spent most nights staring at a screen, she was a jolt I never saw coming. We met at a networking mixer. She thought it was boring. I thought it was overwhelming. We both ended up by the snack table, whispering commentary about the guy in the corner pitching an Uber but for lawyers. I made her laugh. She made me feel like I mattered. We were opposites, but in the beginning it worked. She liked telling people she was dating a tech guy. It made her sound edgy, ambitious, like she saw potential before the world did. And for a while, I really thought she believed in me. She'd ask about my projects over wine, sit on the couch while I pulled up prototypes, scroll through my mock-ups with a neutral face, occasionally nodding. Cool, she'd say. Looks clean. She was never mean, just distant, distracted, like she was playing the part of the supportive girlfriend because she liked the image, not because she understood what I was fighting for. But when I started to really chase it, when I left my job at the marketing agency to go full-time on development, something shifted. Cora liked ambition, but she hated uncertainty. You're gambling everything, she told me one night as I stared at a whiteboard covered in feature flows. You had a steady job. You had clients. You had me. Now you have, what, Ozzy? A dream and a to-do list? It was the first time she didn't just sound unsure. She sounded ashamed. That word stuck with me. Had. She spoke like all of it. Her, the job, the life. Had been mine, and I'd thrown it away. I tried to explain. About the app I was building. About how I didn't want to create another product that barked at people with notifications. I wanted to make a space where creativity felt possible, where people like me, neurotic, perfectionistic, always won. Bad day away from quitting, could breathe again. She stared at me. Blank. You sound insane, she said. You think people are going to download something just because you made it? I remember the silence after that. It didn't hurt like a knife. It hurt like a slow, cold wind, steady, invisible, and impossible to ignore. I told myself it was stress, pressure, that she didn't mean it. But her words didn't stop at critique. They carried a message I couldn't ignore anymore. She didn't believe in me. Not really, not deep down. She believed in what I looked like beside her, not who I was when everything else peeled away. Still, I didn't leave. I stayed through the arguments, through her passive-aggressive digs, through the way she smiled at my ambition in front of friends but rolled her eyes when we were alone. I stayed until one day she didn't. It was a Sunday. Warm, bright, quiet. She walked into the kitchen with her phone in one hand and her purse in the other. I think we need a break, she said. It's just, I don't know if we're aligned anymore. You're in this world that doesn't make sense to me. And I met someone. Blaze. That was his name. He's in finance, she said, like that explained everything. He's grounded. He has plans. It was the cruelest thing she ever said without raising her voice. She left with her things and her certainty. And I stood in the apartment we used to share, staring at the whiteboard she called obsessive, at the mock-ups she'd called naive, at the version of me I hadn't let go of yet. That version. The one who begged for validation, who needed someone else to see the vision before he could, died that day. And the one who remained? He didn't need applause. He needed time. Because if there's one thing heartbreak teaches you, it's how to stop building for someone else's approval, and how to start building for yourself. That's who I became, and that's how Ashlight was born. The first real crack didn't come during an argument. It came during a dinner I paid for. We were at one of those rooftop spots Cora loved. Dim lights, velvet booths, everyone dressed like they were 5 minutes away from being discovered. By a Netflix casting agent, she ordered her usual truffle pasta, red wine she couldn't pronounce but always finished. I picked at my burger and pretended I wasn't thinking about the email I'd received that afternoon. A startup incubator wanted to talk. They'd seen the early demo of Ashlight I'd posted in a low-traffic design forum. Innovative, they called it, grounded in empathy. It wasn't a deal. It wasn't even a promise. But it was something, so I told her, "Babe, I think we might have a shot, a real one." She didn't look up from her phone, just tapped a reply with her thumb and murmured, "That's nice." Nice. Not amazing. Not wow, really. Not even tell me more. Just nice. Like I'd said the soup was good. I leaned in. "Did you hear me?" She sighed. Not heavy. Just enough to let me know I'd interrupted something more important. "Sorry, Ozzy. I've just had a long day. Blaze's firm is pitching a new hedge fund to a board, and it's this whole thing." I blinked. Blaze? She paused, like she'd said something minor, not catastrophic. "My friend," she said quickly. "I told you, he's from my gym. We've been texting a lot lately. He's in finance, it's not a big deal." Not a big deal. But the name lingered. The way she said it too easily, like it had slipped because she'd already said it too many times in her head. I didn't say anything. I nodded, ate a cold bite of burger, pretended it wasn't bitter. A week later, she didn't come home. No text, no call. But when I started to really chase it, when I left my job at the marketing agency to go full-time on development, something shifted. Cora liked ambition, but she hated uncertainty. "You're gambling everything," she told me one night as I stared at a whiteboard covered in feature flows. "You had a steady job. You had clients. You had me. Now you have..." What, Ozzy? A dream and a to-do list? It was the first time she didn't just sound unsure, she sounded ashamed. That word stuck with me. Had. She spoke like all of it. Her, the job, the life, had been mine and I'd thrown it away. I tried to explain. About the app I was building. About how I didn't want to create another product that barked at people with notifications. I wanted to make a space where creativity felt possible. Where people like me, neurotic, perfectionistic, always won. Bad day away from quitting. Could breathe again. She stared at me. Blank. You sound insane, she said. You think people are going to download something just because you made it? I remember the silence after that. It didn't hurt like a knife. It hurt like a slow, cold wind. Steady, invisible, and impossible to ignore. I told myself it was stress. Pressure. That she didn't mean it. But her words didn't stop at critique. They carried a message I couldn't ignore anymore. She didn't believe in me. Not really, not deep down. She believed in what I looked like beside her, not who I was when everything else peeled away. Still, I didn't leave. I stayed through the arguments, through her passive-aggressive digs, through the way she smiled at my ambition in front of friends but rolled her eyes when we were alone. I stayed until one day she didn't. It was a Sunday. Warm, bright, quiet. She walked into the kitchen with her phone in one hand and her purse in the other. I think we need a break, she said. It's just, I don't know if we're aligned anymore. You're in this world that doesn't make sense to me. And I met someone. Blaze. That was his name. He's in finance, she said, like that explained everything. He's grounded. He has plans. It was the cruelest thing she ever said without raising her voice. She left with her things and her certainty. And I stood in the apartment we used to share, staring at the whiteboard she called obsessive, at the mock-ups she'd called naive, at the version of me I hadn't let go of yet. That version. The one who begged for validation, who needed someone else to see the vision before he could, died that day. And the one who remained? He didn't need applause. He needed time. Because if there's one thing heartbreak teaches you, it's how to stop building for someone else's approval, and how to start building for yourself. That's who I became, and that's how Ashlight was born. The first real crack didn't come during an argument. It came during a dinner I paid for. We were at one of those rooftop spots Cora loved. Dim lights, velvet booths, everyone dressed like they were 5 minutes away from being discovered. By a Netflix casting agent, she ordered her usual truffle pasta, red wine she couldn't pronounce but always finished. I picked at my burger and pretended I wasn't thinking about the email I'd received that afternoon. A startup incubator wanted to talk. They'd seen the early demo of Ashlight I'd posted in a low-traffic design forum. Innovative, they called it, grounded in empathy. It wasn't a deal. It wasn't even a promise. But it was something, so I told her, "Babe, I think we might have a shot, a real one." She didn't look up from her phone, just tapped a reply with her thumb and murmured, "That's nice." Nice. Not amazing. Not wow, really. Not even tell me more. Just nice. Like I'd said the soup was good. I leaned in. "Did you hear me?" She sighed. Not heavy. Just enough to let me know I'd interrupted something more important. "Sorry, Ozzy. I've just had a long day. Blaze's firm is pitching a new hedge fund to a board and it's this whole thing." I blinked. Blaze? She paused like she'd said something minor, not catastrophic. "My friend," she said quickly. "I told you, he's from my gym. We've been texting a lot lately. He's in finance. It's not a big deal." Not a big deal, but the name lingered, the way she said it, too easily, like it had slipped because she'd already said it too many times in her head. I didn't say anything. I nodded, ate a cold bite of burger, pretended it wasn't bitter. A week later, she didn't come home. No text, no call. When she finally did, she walked in with that nervous smile she wore when she knew she was about to be cruel. "Can we talk?" My chest tightened. She sat down, but she didn't reach for my hand. That was the moment I knew. Whatever she was about. To say she'd already said it to someone else first. "I think we need space," she said softly. "I've been thinking a lot, and I don't think I can do this anymore." I didn't ask questions. I didn't cry. I just sat there, the whiteboard behind me still full of plans she'd called obsessive. Her perfume clung to the air like an afterthought. She stood up and gave me one last look. Blaze gets it, she said. He's realistic. You live in this idea world. She left without closing the door. That was the beginning of the silence. The kind of silence that hums in your ears when your identity breaks apart. When you realize the person you shared your plans with had never been listening? Not really. She didn't mock me once. She mocked me constantly, just never out loud. She mocked me when she sighed at my prototypes. When she checked her phone while I talked about features. When she called my work cute in front of her friends. When she introduced me as a tech guy trying to get something off the ground. Every comment was small, measured, polite, and absolutely lethal. She never called me a failure. She just made me feel like one. After she left, I gave myself 2 days. 2 days to feel it. To let it punch through my ribs and gut and pride. 2 days to stare at walls and let the weight of her words echo. Then I picked up my laptop. Ashlight was still in fragments. A dozen half-written modules, a UI flow that wasn't quite clean, a back-end system still duct-taped together with code from a weekend binge. But I had something she didn't. Vision, not the kind you pitch. The kind that doesn't die when someone walks out the door. I worked. Morning bled into night. Days blurred. I forgot to eat sometimes. I didn't see friends. I didn't answer texts. I wasn't angry. I was clear. And when the demo finally worked, when the app moved like I always imagined it should, I opened a new folder and renamed it Ashlight Build 1. 2 months later, a product manager at a boutique design firm reached out. She'd seen a Twitter thread where someone posted screenshots of Ashlight's minimalist dashboard. Said it was the only thing keeping their creative team on track without making them feel like failures. She wanted to talk, so we did. She told me she worked with a company that handled design portfolios for marketing teams and creative directors. They'd been trying dozens of project management tools, and all of them felt like corporate surveillance. Yours feels human, she said. It was the first time anyone outside my own brain said that. We ran a beta test. Then another. The waitlist hit. 3,000 in less than 2 weeks. That's when Lux messaged me. She was a UX designer. Freelanced for big and small names alike. I saw the interface, she wrote, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. It's beautiful, but I can make it breathable. Her first mock-up blew me away. Soft gradients. White space with intention. Flow, not friction. We clicked immediately. Not romantically. Not then. Just creatively. Like two people trying to build the same song from opposite sides of the room. Ashlight became ours. And the dream Cora once laughed at? It was growing faster than I could track. The kicker? She was one of the first corporate users. Lux and I watched, in quiet disbelief as the dashboard showed an active team sign-up from a marketing agency based in Chicago, Cora's agency, her name, nestled among the invitees. We said nothing, just watched. As the app she'd once belittled began organizing her deadlines, managing her team flow, and gently reminding her, 3 times a day, what a focused mind could accomplish. Built by the man she left behind, her favorite app was mine. She just didn't know it yet. There's a special kind of pain in being overlooked by someone you love. Not hated, not abused, just quietly dismissed. I used to think heartbreak was loud, that it came with shouting or betrayal or someone slamming a door. But Cora didn't leave with fireworks. She left like she was backing out of a parking spot. No urgency, no remorse. Just the cold, casual efficiency of someone moving on before you even realized they were gone. In the weeks after, I told myself I was fine, that it was better this way, that she never really saw me to begin with. But the truth is, I was gutted. Fully. Completely. I couldn't listen to certain songs. Couldn't walk past our favorite cafe. Couldn't sit at the desk where I once explained to her why passive feedback architecture mattered. She didn't care then. I didn't expect her to care now. But it still burned. What hurt the most wasn't the leaving. It was the way she looked at me before she did. Like I was a man waiting to fail. Like I was embarrassing myself with the very thing that had kept me alive for years. Ashlight was never about the money, not at the start. It was about proving that chaos and creativity didn't have to be enemies. That people like me, people who overthought, who got paralyzed by perfectionism, who live between moments of brilliance and spirals, could build something beautiful. And when she dismissed it, she dismissed me. I stopped checking her social media, but friends still sent screenshots. Cora with Blaze at tech conferences, Cora in the Bahamas, Cora launching her own lifestyle brand with taglines like, "Chase your light," and "Build your empire." Ironic, considering she tried so hard to tear down mine. I should have been angry. I wasn't. Not exactly. I was just hollow. Some nights, I'd sit in the dark with my laptop glowing in my lap, Ashlight's beta dashboard open like a heartbeat. The code felt like a language only I understood, but even that began to feel lonely. Like building something in a cave and wondering if anyone would ever hear the echo. Then the messages started coming in. Users from Brazil, Ireland, Taiwan, creators, writers, indie developers, sending paragraphs about how Ashlight was helping. Then breathe again. It feels like it was made by someone who gets it. My anxiety used to ruin every project I started. Now I finish them. I don't feel broken using this. Those messages cracked something open inside me. Not relief, not joy. Something quieter. Validation. Not from Cora, not from Blaze, from the people I actually built it for. And yet, even with that validation, the ache lingered. Especially late at night, when the world slowed down and silence crept in. I'd catch myself replaying old conversations, words I wished I'd said or words I wished she hadn't. I'd remember the way she used to trace her fingers across my shoulders while I typed, asking if I wanted tea. The way she used to call me genius when I fixed her phone. The way she used to curl up next to me and ask about dreams, and then stopped listening when I gave her real answers. There was a night I broke, just a simple Tuesday. Nothing dramatic. I'd spent the day debugging a memory leak. By midnight, I was exhausted. I clicked open a music app to relax, and one of our old songs queued up automatically. I didn't even realize it was playing until halfway through. By then, the chorus hit. And so did everything else. I sank down to the floor, hands in my hair, chest tight. Not because I missed her, but because I had let her shape how I saw myself. For years, every hesitation, every moment I questioned whether Ashlight was too weird, too niche, too much like me. It all traced back to the quiet condescension in her voice, the smirk. The casual cruelty dressed up as concern. That night, I didn't cry. I wrote. I opened a blank document and poured out every thought I'd been afraid to say out loud. About feeling invisible. About being too soft. About building alone. About being mocked by someone who once claimed to love me. It wasn't code. It wasn't a feature. It was a letter to myself. And I ended it with a promise. You are not here to be understood by those who refuse to look deeper. You are here to build anyway. From that night on, something changed. Lux noticed it first. You're writing clearer, she said during a product meeting. Sharper, like you're not trying to prove anything anymore. I wasn't. Not to Cora. Not to Blaze. Not to anyone. The app began to evolve with me. Features I once second-guessed became non-negotiable. Ashlight wasn't just a tool now. It was a statement. A sanctuary for people who had spent too long believing their mess made them unworthy of momentum. The downloads tripled. The user retention broke 90%. Reviewers called it the quietest revolution in the productivity space. And then came the email from a marketing manager at Cora's company. We've recently onboarded Ashlight for our internal teams. It began. Our creatives are reporting massive boosts in flow and reduced burnout. We'd love to invite your founder to speak at a virtual panel about sustainable productivity for design professionals. It took me a full minute to laugh. Cora, using my app depending on my system, teaching others to trust the very structure she once ridiculed. I didn't respond to the email, but I opened Ashlight's admin dashboard. Her name was right there, active user. Last login, 2 hours ago. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I wanted revenge, but because in that moment, I realized something I never expected to feel again. Closure. Not the kind where you get an apology, the kind where you stop needing. 1. It started with a headline. I wasn't even looking for it. Just scrolling through tech news during a lunch break, half distracted, until I saw the name. Former finance executive Blaze Whitaker under investigation for securities fraud. I froze. The article wasn't long, just enough to lay out the accusations, misappropriated client funds, false investment portfolios, ongoing audit. Nothing confirmed. But serious enough for regulators to get involved, and serious enough to ruin reputations by association. Cora's name wasn't in the article, but she didn't need to be. I closed the tab and stared at my screen. The cursor blinked in the dashboard's analytics panel, waiting for a command. I didn't know what to feel. Not sympathy, not satisfaction, something more complicated. Cora had always prided herself on choosing winners. That was her brand. The woman with taste, with vision, with the perfect aesthetic, and the perfect man on her arm. She left me for stability, security, finance. Now that very choice was unraveling. But I didn't say anything, didn't post, didn't gloat, until the email came. Subject, request for private meeting. From Cora Matisa nimblevisuals.co to ozzygaslight.aphi Ozzy. I know this is unexpected, but I could really use a conversation. It's not about work. I just need to talk, please. Cora, I stared at it for nearly 10 minutes, then forwarded it to Lux. Her reply came instantly. What did she do now? I didn't answer. Cora asked to meet at a bookstore cafe. Neutral ground, not too public, not too private. The kind of place we used to wander through years ago when we still shared headphones and dreams. She was already there when I arrived. Wearing sunglasses indoors, which felt ironic, considering the last time she wore those, she couldn't stop looking down at me. Now, she couldn't meet my eyes. Thank you for coming, she said. Her voice was too calm. That kind of calm that cracks under pressure. I sat, waited. She sighed. You saw it, right? About Blaze. I nodded once. She ran a hand through her hair, still flawless, still polished. But her posture betrayed her. Tension in her shoulders, the tight way she held her coffee cup like it might shatter. They're digging through everything, she whispered. And I didn't know, Ozzy. I swear I didn't. But now my name's on projects, shared accounts. I'm being pulled into the mess. She looked at me then, really looked, for the first time in a long time. I need your help. That was the moment. That was the twist. Not just her regret, not just her fall, her need of me. Not because I was safe or stable or background support, but because I had become something she never imagined I'd be. Essential. And still, I didn't answer. Because behind all of her polished fear, I saw it. Not guilt, calculation. I heard you've partnered with several firms, she added, eyes narrowing. One of them's taking over some of our contracts. I just thought, maybe you could say something. Help untangle things. It hit me all at once. Why she really reached out. It wasn't about Blaze. It wasn't about closure. It was about power. Mine. And the fact that I now had enough of it to change her fate. For years, she treated my dream like it was disposable. Now it was her life raft. Leaned back. I'm sorry you're dealing with this, I said. And I meant that. I did. But I wasn't the same man she left behind. I wasn't here to clean up her mess. She reached across the table, her voice soft. Ozzy, I made mistakes. I know that. But we had something. No, I interrupted. You had me, and you threw me away. She blinked. Silence settled between us. Then she whispered, "So you won't help." I met her gaze, steady. "No, not this time." She stood up slowly, something behind her eyes breaking. Not sorrow, not shame, but the sudden realization that she'd finally run out of lifelines. I didn't watch her walk away, because this wasn't revenge. It was self-respect, and the boy who once begged for her belief was long gone. The call came just after midnight. I was up late with Lux, pushing the latest update to Ashlight. We were sipping bad coffee, surrounded by empty takeout containers and code commits. My phone buzzed, unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Then I saw the voicemail transcription. "Ozzy, please. I didn't know where else to go." Cora Lux looked at me from across the room. She didn't say anything, just raised an eyebrow. I shook my head and pressed play. Her voice cracked on the second word. "Ozzy. I know I shouldn't call you, but everything's falling apart. Blaze is gone. I mean, actually gone. His accounts are frozen. The firm cut me off. My parents, they're ashamed of me. I don't know what to do. Please, if there's any part of you that remembers what we were..." I stopped the message. Lux didn't flinch. She just set her mug down and said softly, "You don't owe her anything." I nodded, but I still couldn't shake the feeling that this was it. The final thread unraveling. The last chapter waiting to be closed. 2 days later, we ran into each other again. Not by accident. Her company had just been bought out by one of our clients. The acquisition team had scheduled a transition meeting. Lux and I walked in, dressed clean and calm. Cora was already seated at the end of the table. She looked smaller than I remembered, tired, stripped of her polish. Her hands were clasped too tightly in her lap. When she saw me, something flickered in her eyes. Relief, maybe, or hope. The meeting started, and I played my role. I spoke about integration plans, creative team transitions, and system handovers. Lux handled the UI and workflow implementation updates. It was all business, until it wasn't. "Will the legacy user permissions carry over?" someone asked. Cora cleared her throat, suddenly finding her voice. "That depends on leadership, right? On who's in charge now." Everyone looked at me. I looked at her. "Yes," I said. "That depends entirely on us." There was a pause, then a quiet ripple of tension beneath the corporate pleasantries. After the meeting, she caught me by the elevators, alone. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said. "You helped create that," I replied, by laughing at what I was building. "I didn't laugh," she said quickly. I didn't understand." I tilted my head. "No, you didn't laugh. That would have been easier. You dismissed it, quietly, repeatedly, like I was wasting your time just by dreaming." She looked like she wanted to deny it. But she didn't. "I didn't know I'd fall so far," she whispered. "I didn't think I'd need help one day, and I definitely didn't think it would come from you." "That's the problem," I said. "You thought help was beneath you until you were beneath it." She flinched, her lip trembled. "I was scared, Ozzy." Blaze seemed like the safer bet. He had money, a plan. You had potential. But I didn't believe in potential back then. And now? She didn't answer. She just looked up at me, searching my face for something familiar, something she'd thrown away. "I use Ashlight every day," she said finally. "It's the only thing keeping me sane. I didn't know it was you until the admin dashboard showed your name in the system. Then I saw the design, the structure, the way it listens. It's you. It's everything I missed. Everything I..." She stopped herself. "I don't expect forgiveness," she added quietly. "I just wanted you to know. You were right. About all of it." I nodded. "Just once." "You don't need to say it," I said. "I already built it without you." Silence. "I didn't come to gloat," I added. "That version of me, the one who needed your approval, that version died when you walked out." She blinked fast, like she was holding something back. Then she whispered, "Do you ever think about us?" I looked her in the eye. No hesitation. I think about who I became because of you, and I thank you for the lesson. She stepped back, the elevator doors opening behind her, but she didn't get in. Instead, she asked one final question. Was there ever a moment you wanted me to come back? I didn't lie. There were hundreds of them, I said. But now, not one. The doors closed between us, and it felt final. No dramatic music, no revenge speech, just clarity, the kind that doesn't roar. It settles. That night, Lux and I walked the streets of downtown after dinner. No plan. Just the hum of the city and the quiet rhythm of footsteps, beside someone who never once asked me to be less. She looked up at the Ashlight billboard on 8th Avenue, our first major ad. Simple, elegant, it just said, "For the minds that can't sit still." She never stood a chance, Lux said with a small smile. I chuckled. No, she didn't. We crossed the street. Light rain began to fall, not enough to run, just enough to feel alive. You okay? Lux asked. I nodded. I finally said everything I needed to say, I told her, then paused. No, I built everything I needed to say. Lux smiled, and people listened. The next morning, I checked the Ashlight Analytics dashboard. Cora's team account had been deactivated, not out of spite, out of choice. Some goodbyes don't come with closure, some do. Mine came with a loading screen, a clean interface, and peace. Real peace. The kind you earn, not by destroying someone else, but by rebuilding yourself where they left you broken. That was the real revenge. Not success, not recognition. Just becoming someone who no longer needed either. It's strange how quiet the world becomes when you no longer need to prove anything. Not because you've given up, but because you've already won. 6 months after that last meeting with Cora, Ashlight was everywhere. Major brands adopted it. Indie creators couldn't live without it. Reviews poured in, not just praising its features, but its feeling, like it had a soul, like it understood, because it did, because I built it out of pain, out of silence, out of years of being overlooked, underestimated, mocked by the person who claimed to love me. Ashlight didn't just help people manage their creativity, it helped them believe in it, and nothing felt more like justice than watching. The very same industry that once ignored me now pivot around the system I created. I never publicly named Cora, never posted about Blaze, I never had to. Their downfall unfolded without my hand. Blaze's case exploded in the media. Multiple charges, civil lawsuits, asset seizures. When they couldn't find him, speculation ran wild. Some said Dubai, others said offshore islands. All I knew was that he was gone, and Cora was left holding the debris. She quietly stepped down from her agency role. Word got around that she tried launching her own consultancy. It failed before it even got traction. Burned connections, burned trust, burned out. That's when the real message came. Not an email, not a voicemail, a letter, handwritten. Delivered to my office in a sealed white envelope. Lux placed it on my desk without saying a word. I opened it carefully. Ozzy, I don't know if this will reach you. I don't even know if you'll read it. But I had to try. You didn't deserve what I did to you. You didn't deserve to be belittled, sidelined, treated like your dreams were a burden. I did that. I chipped away at you, and I called it love. The truth is, I was afraid of your vision. I saw it, even when I said I didn't, and it terrified me. Because it meant I was small next to something real. You didn't fail me, Ozzy. I failed you. Blaze is gone. My name is in the news for all the wrong reasons. People cross the street to avoid associating with me. I deserve that. I just hope, in some distant version of this world, you're at peace. And if that peace ever included forgiveness, I would carry it like grace. Cora sat with the letter for a long time. Not angry. Not vindicated. Just Still. She had finally said it. All of it. But by the time those words reached me, I no longer needed them. Later that evening, I stood on the 22nd floor balcony of our new office in the city. Lux was inside, laughing with our dev team. Someone had brought cake. We'd just hit 10 million users. 10 million. I looked out at the skyline, the city buzzing beneath me, and I thought of the man I used to be. The one sitting in a cafe across from the woman who didn't believe in him, who let her smile tell him that dreams were childish things best kept in notebooks. That version of me died the day she walked away. The man I am now, he owns the skyline, and he builds for people like her, not to hurt them, but to remind them that mocked things still grow, that ridicule is not the end, it's the beginning. The next morning, we announced Ashlight's full transition into a creative OS, a platform, not just an app. And the press lost its mind. Wired called it the future of idea-driven work. Fast Company dubbed it the most intuitive ecosystem for creatives ever built. Investors came, acquisitions offered, partnerships lined up like clockwork, but we said no to most, because I wasn't here to build a brand for shareholders. I was here to build something that outlasted me. 2 weeks after the announcement, I got another message. Not from Cora. From a small community college in upstate New York, they wanted to use Ashlight as a teaching tool for their at-risk youth program. Kids who'd been told they weren't smart enough, creative enough, focused enough. Kids who'd been told no more. Times than they could count. I scheduled the call myself, and when the counselor asked, "Why would a company your size make time for a place like us?" I smiled and gave them the only answer that ever mattered. Because I was one of them. Lux. And I flew out there a month later, gave a talk, donated full licenses, partnered on scholarships. One of the students asked me what Ashlight stood for. I told her. "For the parts of you that everyone else told you to hide." She cried. So did I. That night, Lux leaned against my shoulder as we walked through the quiet campus under the stars. "You ever think," she asked softly, "that this isn't revenge anymore?" I looked at her. "It isn't," I said. "It's the aftermath of survival." Then I paused. But if she's watching from whatever corner she's hiding in, I hope she knows this is what her laughter built. Lux raised an eyebrow. "That's cold." "No," I said. "That's closure." She laughed. Real laughter. Not the kind that shamed, the kind that made me feel like I belonged exactly where I was. And I did. Ashlight was no longer a dream. It was a movement. Built from scraps of pain, fueled by rejection, carried by the people the world kept telling to be smaller. I'd become the man she never thought I could be, and even better. I no longer needed her to notice. The final revenge wasn't watching her fall. It was watching myself rise. Quietly, completely, permanently. And if she ever logs in again, if her shaky fingertips ever scroll through the dashboard trying to find a version of me she still recognizes, she'll only find the truth she spent years laughing at, the dream she mocked, is now the world she works in.